Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me again. First of all, I just want to say a huge thank you for those of you who've been watching and interacting with my last couple of videos. I'm learning so much about Singapore and Singapore's mindsets through your comments and understanding what people think about the things I've talked about, Singapore's safety, about cultural appropriation, and I'm really enjoying understanding a different perspective. Some of the perspective I share, a lot of it I share actually, but some of it is giving me a much greater awareness of Singapore and Singaporeans, and I think that's brilliant. So please continue to interact. I'll be very interested in your thoughts for today's topic as well. I'm going to try and keep some sort of regular flow of videos coming out, maybe every Tuesday evening in Singapore, and I think that'll be Tuesday morning in the UK. Or something like that. Tuesday afternoon in the UK, Tuesday morning in the US. So yeah, thank you very much. The other night, Millie and I were given a walking tour as a present. We both have our birthdays really close to each other. And we were on this walking tour called New World's End, and we had headphones on and we're walking around the Jalan Besar area, and it was really amazing. It took us back to the 1960s, it played music, it had sounds of the area. It took us back to a time in Singapore where there was gun crime and like knife brawls and stuff, which is really foreign to today in Singapore. And it was brilliant. We really enjoyed walking around. There's very immersive. I don't want to share too much because I don't want to spoil it for any of you who would like to go. But while we were walking through, they talked about some of the nightlife that would have happened around then, around the 1960s, and it talked about brothels and that sort of thing. And while we were walking, suddenly realised, so a bit further up from me, there was a guy having a chat through one of the gates. It's like a gate that leads up to some staircases up to people's apartments, I guess, above the shop houses. And there's a guy there having a chat. And so I just kind of looked and see who he was talking to. And there I saw my first brothel. It was filled with like women were all sat up in really colourful clothing up along the side of the stairs. And it took me a few moments to realise what I was looking at. It was a little bit bizarre. I hadn't seen anything like this before. And we had to keep walking on the tour where it has these little sounds of footsteps so you can keep up with where they want you to be. And so I had to keep going. But I had a lot of thoughts around it. Firstly, for those of you who don't know, Singapore has legalised prostitution. And that for me is a really interesting thought. I've had some discussions with people about it. One conversation that I had was with my cousin and his wife, and we were talking about the fact that the government is able to control prostitution, control the sex trade, so it doesn't go kind of underground and dirty, I guess. Another thing is that the ladies, or the workers, should I say, they all have regular health screenings. And I found it really strange in a place like Singapore, which has such strict values, very clear protection, if you like, over the family unit, that there would be prostitution legalised. And I felt very conflicted by it, and I wondered what your thoughts were about it too. One of the comments also on one of my previous vlogs, where I was discussing the safety of women in Singapore, someone made the comment that women are safer because of the legalised prostitution. Now, I don't know whether that is entirely true, but it might contribute a bit to it, I guess. Maybe like just a small percentage. Their thought was that if men can pay, they won't pray. And I thought that was, largely inaccurate for how, like, a lot of the friends that I have, or probably all of the friends that I have, wouldn't prey on women if they had an opportunity to pay, because they choose not to do either of those things. But it's a really interesting culture that's here. I know it's very prevalent in the rest of Southeast Asia, in a lot of Southeast Asia. I shouldn't make such a sweeping comment like that. But I was just really surprised to see it so blatant here in Singapore. It wasn't that late either. It was probably about 10:30, 11 in the evening. And so I guess it kind of took me by surprise. one of the things we also noticed walking around that area, near Farrer Park, I don't know if you guys know that area very well, but most of the people who are out and busy in the evening were men. There were very, very rarely any women. We were walking through a bit that they call Bangla Square, near there. And it was at that point I noticed, and I just nudged Millie and said, "What do you notice about all the people around here?" She kind of looked around and said, "I don't know. What are you looking for?" And I said, "Well, I can't see any women except for you." And there was a lot of men out that night, and I don't know whether that means there's less accountability, or is there an expected understanding? Women know that men might be going out. I don't know whether this is like pockets of communities of people. It's an area of Singapore that I'm very unfamiliar with, a little bit uncomfortable with, to be honest, but intrigued by. Now, I'm part of a couple of WhatsApp groups where it is men only, and one very localised to where I live. And on that, there was a couple of guys who were saying, if you go to if you want to go and get a massage, and they use the phrase with a happy ending, then here's a place to go. And it's just like a regular place up the road. And I couldn't quite believe what I was reading, firstly on such a public forum that people would be sharing that sort of thing. But also the way that they talked about it made it seem super shady and probably not legal. And so I guess the illegal side of things still happen here. And it wasn't like a designated area. I understand we have designated red light districts in Singapore, an area of Geylang, Orchard Towers, which I'm pretty sure has been knocked down sometime soon. And I'm just curious about that. Is there an undercurrent of something that is kind of hidden here in Singapore? And is it there and people don't talk about it? Or is it non-existent? I'm just curious. Another thing that I wanted to discuss and find out your thoughts about was something that I'm very aware could be a very touchy subject, which is, no, not touchy like that. I know we're talking about brothels, but so I was on a Facebook group the other day having a little look through on an expat group. I'm officially an expat, even though I feel like my heart is Singaporean. I was born here as well. Those of you who don't know my story, please go check out my book, The Local Immigrant, or there's a YouTube series called The Local Immigrant on on my other page, on our other channel, which is called Wanderlust. Do check it out. But on that forum or Facebook page, someone had said, "Hey, I'm an expat from the UK, so we're moving to Singapore. Where can I meet other expats?" And the comments below was a very, very interesting one. No one gave an answer that I would have been proud of as an expat. The answers, and I don't know whether some of you are guessing it already, were Orchard Towers, a red light district, Geylang, red light district, and the Keys, Boat Quay, Clark Quay, Robertson Quay, where all the bars and clubs are. Now, I thought that was really, really interesting that was a stereotype that was placed. Now, this brings me on to my question. What is the clientele like in terms of the brothels that are around Singapore? Do you know? Can you share? I'm really interested in what the market is. Not because I'm trying to get into it. I'm not a business person, nor would that be my business. But I'm curious. I'm very curious. You've probably noticed already. I'm curious as to how people work and how people's minds operate. And so I've loved hearing everybody's opinions on my last couple of vlogs, and I'd really, really like to have your opinion on this one too. That is pretty much it from me. I don't have a lot of thoughts on it. My thoughts are still quite new, and I'm still kind of exploring this thing. I'd love to do some sort of video expose on the illegal side of things, if that is something that happens. Yeah, I'd be really interested in that, but I would have to do a lot of research first, and just to see what's going on there, what happens. Again, I think I'm curious because it doesn't feel like something that pairs up with the values that we hold here in Singapore. So anyway, there you go. that was my first brothel, walking past it and seeing some very, very colourful clothing. Actually, I did have another thought, which is all of the ladies I saw sat along those stairs up there were of the Indian race. They're of the Indian community, wearing saris, which are really, really beautiful. But we're in a very largely Indian or Bangladeshi populated area. Now, is it organised that way? Do they organise different races like sex workers and from different races in different places? Interesting one. Anyway, those are some thoughts. I would love to see your comments. I would really appreciate you. Drop them down, respond to each other, respond to me. I will try to respond to every single message that I receive. And I hope to see you next time on this vlog, semi-podcast sort of thing. If you have some sort of title that you'd like to give this thing, feel free to give that a go as well. Maybe I'll just not worry and just keep doing what I'm doing. But we'll see. Thank you again. If you're interested in what we get up to during the week, do check out our Wonderlust YouTube page, which is youtube.com/wonderlustworld. And I'd appreciate you subscribing there as well as subscribing here. And I also have a blog and various other different things at jonty10.com. Please do check that out and continue to get in touch and let me know how things are going. I appreciate that very much, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.